You know, you're applying the problems of some people to us. Why are you treating us like Russian sailors? We also said, you know, we speak Japanese. I mean, they also said that, well, you see, if there's a problem with a Russian sailor coming in, then what do? We'd like to tell them to leave or to stop it, but they don't speak Japanese. It says, well, we speak Japanese. And we've lived in Japan at that time for more than 10 years. All of us were permanent residents. I mean, and, you know, crying out loud, we know how to take a bath. You know, it's an extension of the promise, I will not poop in the pool. Well, I will take a bath in the pool properly, right? And, you know, I said, well, what about Asian foreigners? You know? Yes, go ahead.
Did you tell him that the guy is Chinese who was let in? Did you tell him that?
You're right. You're getting ahead of me here. Yeah, you're in the zone. Yes, it was a woman, by the way, Chinese woman, Chinese wife of a Japanese man. What about Asian foreigners? You know, how can you tell who's a foreigner and who's not a foreigner? That's a big question, right? If you say only Japanese, then what happens if someone looks Japanese but is foreign? Or someone who is not Japanese, who doesn't look Japanese but is Japanese, you know? We'll get to that later, right? Okay, here's their answer. Why refuse foreigners? Because we can.
That's what he said?
Yeah, it's our policy. Yeah, it's our policy. Now, look, we cannot just refuse Russians. That would be discriminatory. So we refuse all foreigners equally. Now, this time you hear a little bit of music running through your head, like this is in the Twilight Zone, because fairness is refusing people equally. So treating all foreigners badly equally is therefore not discriminatory. So we can't tell the difference between Russians and you guys, so we'll just refuse you all. Okay, so we get to the big question. What about Asian foreigners? You know, what about the Chinese woman? Well, I asked them, what about the Zainichi Japan-born ethnic Koreans and Chinese? Remember Asian foreigners? Does anybody not know who the Zainichi are? If you do not know who the Zainichi are, okay, I'll explain. The Zainichi are generational foreigners. There are foreigners in Japan who are born in Japan. Japan's laws say that if you want to be Japanese, you must have Japanese blood, or you must naturalize, like I did. Okay? Now, there are some people here that were citizens of empire. Japan had an empire between 1905 and 1945, where it had colonies, and it brought laborers over to work, and they were Japanese citizens too. They were citizens of empire. There were a lot of people that were Koreans that came over here to work, either by force or by their own will. But after the war, their citizenship, the Japanese citizenship, was taken away, and they became foreigners again. But some of them did not want to leave. So they said, okay, you can stay, but you'll be foreigners. Is that okay? Okay. And so will your children and your grandchildren and forever, until you naturalize. You'll always be foreigners. Or if you marry a Japanese, your children will be Japanese.
So what do you mean by naturalize?
Naturalize meaning taking out Japanese citizenship. This is to naturalize.
So they have to decide whether I want to become Japanese or not.
In this situation? Oh, in the Zainichi situations.
The Zainichi situation.
Yes, in the Zainichi situations, if a Zainichi, a generational foreigner, marries a Japanese, Zainichi is still a foreigner, but the children will be Japanese. Because
and if I want to live in Japan and want to become a Japanese, how does it work? Do I have to marry a Japanese woman? Or?
No. You have to naturalize like I did.
So just stay here a while, and after a certain time I'm allowed to choose?
Yes, that's right. But in this case, there are some people that have been here for 3, 4, 5 generations who speak Japanese like natives because they are native speakers of Japanese. You don't even know them from regular, waji. They're just born and raised here like any other Japanese, but they have to go and get a gaijin card just like you do because they're not citizens. So what about them? The Japan-born ethnic Koreans and Chinese. They said, yeah, we'll refuse them too if we know. So I said, okay, what about a hypothetical situation? You have a Chinese person from Nanking, comes over to Japan, marries a Japanese, and comes to your onsen. Would you say no? They said, of course we'd say no. He says, well, what about her? Who? Her. She's not Japanese? No, I'm Chinese, she said. So what they do? Whoops. They kicked the Chinese lady out. And of course they said, we're sorry, we can't, you're a foreigner, we didn't know, okay, get out. And of course she had their children too who are Japanese. They had to be with her. Her husband was not there, so they could not go alone, so technically they were kicked out too. So, I said, look, you have a very strange way of deciding who's foreign. Anyone who looks foreign is out. Anyone who doesn't look foreign, like the Chinese woman, can come in, unless she says, hi, I'm Chinese. So, this rule of yours is crazy. And isn't this racism? Isn't this discrimination? And he said, okay, yeah, so it's discrimination. But if we let foreigners in, we will go out of business, so leave. They said it's a business decision. It's discrimination, so it's our business. We can run our business as we please. We can choose our customers, is their argument. Okay? Questions and comments right now? Remember, you're still in the 17 people. Okay? Let me give you a more deep hypothetical situation. We've been talking about foreigners and Japanese. Well, how about this situation right here? Come on, give me the kawaiis. Come on. Go on, 1, 2, 3. Kawaii. Thank you.
Japanese.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you. Well, these are my kids. Now the plot thickens, right? This is them a while back. This is, as you can see by the date down there, this is 1996. This is us in Venice. And if you want to see how they look a bit more like now, that's another 5, 6 years. That's about 5, 6 years ago. Yeah. So yeah, they do grow up, don't they? Well, you can see there's Amy right there, and there's Anna on the right, and they're Amy and Anna Sugawara Aldwinkle, 1996. They're both born and raised in Japan. They're native speakers of Japanese. They're Japanese citizens. They were there with us at the Onsen. Yes?
Do you teach them both Japanese and English, or just Japanese?
Oh, I speak to them in English.
So they both grow up bilingual.
Right. So, well, so we said my ex-wife asked me, what about these kids? As you can see, one looks a little bit more Asian, and one looks a little bit more Western. Right? They're both my kids, as far as I know. I can't blame the one on the right for being I can't blame the milkman for Anna. But what happens? What do you think they said? They said, "Can these?" My ex-wife asked, "Can these two kids come in?" And what do you think the onsen owner said?
Just one, only one.
You said just one? How many people just one? Boy, we're getting cynical. Boy, that's a majority here. How many think both got in? 1, 2, 3, 4. Optimists. How many people? Sorry?
Did you count yourself? You raised your hand.
Oh, I'm just counting I'm just doing a demonstration. Okay. And how many? All right. How many people think that both of them were refused? Even more cynical. Okay, 4 or 5 people. Well, what happened is this. They said that my younger daughter Anna looks foreign. Foreign. They said they used the word gaijin boy. We'll have to refuse her entry. Now this time the laughter begins to dry up a little bit because before it was just crazy. It was just ludicrous. It was just surreal. At this point you realize, look, this is affecting my kids. This is also affecting other people's kids. There are lots and lots of international marriages in Japan, and they have children. What happens if one of them looks more like the non-Japanese parent? Does that mean that just because of the way one of my daughters looks, that she has to face a life of being refused at an onsen? For no other reason but she looks more like her daddy than her mommy? That's something as a father I could not let stand. And that's one of the reasons why I've been talking about this for years and years and years. Because when you say Japanese only, it will also refuse Japanese people too. Japanese society is a lot more complicated and a lot more diverse than people think about. You hear about the Tain's Minzoku, Tain's Kokka, the monocultural, monoethnic society? Excuse me, bullshit. Not true. There's lots and lots of Japanese of diverse backgrounds. Look at the television. Becky, Umemiya Anna, Miyazawa Rie. There's lots of people out there who have international roots. So the point is that your younger daughter will refuse service, she looks too foreign, that is discrimination by race. This is not gaikokujin sabetsu. This is not just gaiken sabetsu, this is jinshu sabetsu. None other. Okay? All right, I'd like to now go on a little tangent. Taking a little tangent. I said, remember I went bullshit a few minutes ago? Well, I'm going to tell you why I would make that claim. Let's take a look at Japan's invisible kokusaika. Kokusaika in this situation meaning internationalization. Now, Japan is internationalizing. Yes, sir?
I don't know this word.
Internationalization.
Okay.
Japan is becoming more international. Let me show you how. We don't see it because there are around 40,000 international marriages per year in